All right, I'm assuming the 10 seconds is over. The meeting will please come to order. I don't know that it was not in order already, but if you weren't in order, be in order now. I'll ask Lisa to call the roll.
Ms. Chow?
Here.
Ms. Drucker?
Here.
Ms. Kelly? Ms. Hussey Arntzen? Ms. McDonald?
Here.
Mr. Pierce?
Here.
Mr. Swanson?
Here.
Ms. Thomas?
Here.
Mr. Canning?
Here.
Ms. Canifax? Mr. Squires?
Here.
Mr. Jacoby?
Here. All right, we have a quorum present. And my first order of business is to read the script that is required to be read under Illinois law for these remote meetings. This meeting is being conducted remotely via Microsoft Teams. For those watching this video in the future, the state of Illinois is currently under a stay-at-home order issued by Governor J.B. Pritzker due to the coronavirus global pandemic. As a result, all in-person governmental meetings have been canceled. However, the Open Meetings Act now permits electronic meetings of governmental bodies like the Sesquicentennial Planning Committee. And today we are conducting our business in compliance with state law. This meeting is being broadcast live on our local cable access channel 6. It is also being broadcast on the internet, on YouTube Live, and the URL for that is www.youtube.consumer/user/Village of Wilmette/live. To participate in the meeting, you can join through Microsoft Teams. Visit the Village's website at www.wilmette.com and find the calendar event for the Sesquicentennial meeting. There is a link for you to join the meeting. You will also find the meeting agenda and any agenda materials under the calendar. Alternatively, you can view the meeting on channel 6 or on YouTube and call in to the meeting, allowing you to listen and speak using your telephone. The phone number is 872-239-8225. Today's meeting code is 493-284-636 $. You may also submit your comments through YouTube Live and emails to comdev, C-O-M-D-E-V, @wilmette.com. A member of the village staff will read your comment to the committee. All comments to the committee will be recorded in the meeting minutes as well. For our meeting guests joining by Teams, when you are not speaking, please keep your device muted to minimize the disruption of the proceedings, and your video turned off so that the board meeting members can be seen. And that is the end of the statement. That takes us to the first item on the agenda, which is the approval of the February 8, 2021 minutes. They have been distributed to the committee. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Lisa.
Lisa.
And Vern, do I see
Yeah.
that you're seconding? Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve? Well, there has been a motion. Lisa, will you call the roll on that motion?
Sure. I'm sorry, who was the second?
Vern.
Vern.
Thank you. Ms. Chow?
Yes.
Ms. Drucker?
Sorry, I was muted. Beth Drucker, yes.
Thank you. Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Canning?
Aye.
Mr. Squires,
Yes.
Mr. Jacoby.
Yes.
Thank you.
Uh, At this meeting, we welcome a new member to the committee, Alice Chow. And Alice is in attendance, and I warned her beforehand that I'm going to put her on the spot a little bit and turn the camera on her and have her introduce herself to the committee. I mentioned to her that we've all done this at an earlier meeting, and she missed that, which is too bad, but we'll all introduce ourselves to you individually at a later time. But Alice, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alice Chow. My husband and I have lived in Wilmette for the last 34 years. And at one time, I served as a board member, library board member for one term with Lisa McDonald. I've also helped out with the village-wide Asian Heritage Celebration in the 90s. I currently am a Medicare educator, helping seniors navigate through the Medicare system and maximize my clients' Medicare benefits and minimize their costs.
Okay, well, thank you, and welcome to the committee, and we're glad to have you on board. We have received a number of communications from the public with regard to their ideas for how to celebrate the Sesquicentennial. I'm not necessarily going to go through all of those because you have them in your packets and you've read them. Most of them are already reflected on the summary of ideas that we have previously distributed. We're hopeful that there are members of the public present for this meeting who have some ideas to suggest or some comments to make. And so at this time, I will ask if there are any such people, and we will recognize you and hear you out at this point. Anybody want to be first?
So I'm happy to go first. Can you hear me?
Yes, and please state your name and we'll go
Sure.
from there.
Sure. So my name is Beth Feely. I am a resident of Wilmette. I actually grew up here, moving here since when I was 4 and then moving back to raise my family. I'm with an organization called Nurture Neighbors. And so we were thrilled to be alerted to this wonderful celebration. And I thought the ideas that were presented in the memo that was shared were just all wonderful. And so I don't know that I have a lot to add, but I was particularly struck by the idea for the homecoming for former residents and thought that maybe the community, as they are possibly planning family reunions, just to make sure that the community knows that this would be a great time to hold those so that their family members who perhaps are coming back home could participate. I also thought that doing some sort of, I don't know if there's any space to do something online, but to have some sort of recording of selfies of people wishing Wilmette a happy 150th birthday. Maybe people that live here, maybe people that don't, but just something that would be kind of fun for people to watch and give them a chance to weigh in if they can't physically be here to partake in the activities. I also thought that, I don't know if anybody's ever been to London and have done the London walks, but these are wonderful walks across London and they all have a theme. And I thought that the idea of maybe having a Wilmette walks, something that could be pre-recorded that people could walk around, maybe download onto their phones and just kind of learn about various areas of Wilmette. Would be something that people could do and they could kind of do it on their own, or as an organized activity. And then finally, there's somebody that lives in the village. She's actually an old school friend and I have run into her occasionally. She knows a lot about bird watching. And I don't know, that's usually a month of May. And she has organized in the past some really wonderful activities at Gilson. But it's something that I think is really special. I think the lakefront and that whole area is so special to Wilmette. So I wasn't sure if perhaps highlighting that and making sure that the village knows about that would also be really, really neat. And she's also a Wilmette resident. And so I'm happy to follow up in that regard. And maybe some of you know about this. But anyway, those were just a couple of things that came to me. And then, finally, the other idea, and this is probably maybe a little bigger ticket. I'm a huge fan of the Jeffrey Bear specials on Channel 11 about various parts of the Chicago area. And so I don't know if we have somebody who also shares a real affinity for those and wants to help create or get him to narrate a Wilmette video, that I thought that would be perhaps shooting for the stars, but that would be really a really neat way to commemorate this 150th anniversary. So consider those put forth for whatever they're worth.
Well, first of all, Beth, thank you very much for coming. We hope that your organization, Neutral Neighbors, will actively participate in and support the plan as it is being developed and carried out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who would like to be next? I'm going to call the name Anthony Chambers because I believe, Anthony, you are present.
I am present, yes.
I more or less asked Anthony if he would please attend tonight because he presented an idea that I think requires some explanation by him. So, Anthony, I'll turn it over to you, and why don't you tell me what your idea is and in some detail so that we can understand what you're suggesting.
Sure, thank you. So in a kind of broad sense, we have the Historical Society has a lot of existing older photos of the village throughout the years. And if you've ever scanned a QR code on your phone that goes, yep, exactly. That often takes you to a website or some sort of thing on your phone. And it's just simply printing off a bunch of QR codes, putting them on signs around the village, and then scanning them. And then as you hold up your phone, you can actually see the old photo overlaid on the new photo, or the actual building that you're looking at through your phone and then just in person. So the idea then is it gives you kind of this two-part kind of experience where you're in Wilmette in the present time, and you're also looking at old Wilmette through that experience of our citizens back 150, 25 years. I think the idea is interesting because it offers up a lot of opportunities for an event. I think earlier on the call, somebody had said walking or tours. Those could be kind of docent type tours like that. You could involve grade school kids identifying photos, and citizens themselves could identify and potentially put photos and submit them of their old house or whomever. The technology is basically off the shelf, right? There's nothing new here. It would just take some time and planning, and could be interesting and fun.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Anthony with regard to his suggestion here? Or any comments?
I think it sounds really fun. I think it sounds really cool to be able to see that double image. I know some other towns, as I was doing research on what other towns have done for their Sesquicentennial, some have like little videos or trailers that they posted, what's on this corner now, oh, a 7-Eleven, what used to be there, and it's this, and you can kind of hear about it, but to be able to actually be in a spot and kind of see both of those things at the same time sounds really interesting. I haven't heard of that, so that's cool.
Anthony, do you know if they're...
Very good idea.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Oh, hi, John. I agree. I thought that was a very interesting idea. And as you know, there's a wealth of material at the Historical Museum that could be worked into it.
Anyone else?
The only thing I would add is it would hopefully, after this little program or event is over, I think giving it back to the Historical Society so that they did kind of a care and feeding of that, would be something of interest as the years go on, or they sponsor additional walks. You know, there's really nothing stopping us from kind of just having this as an ongoing program or capability that the Historical Society could have. After you build it, it's an asset that they could have.
Somebody has their hand up.
That's me. I love the idea and I love using QR codes. And I think that expounding on some of the ideas that a couple other people sent in, you know, you could have different spots. You know, if you prefer a walking tour, you take a walking tour. If you want a bike tour, you know, you take a bicycle tour. You know, if you want a virtual tour, you take a virtual tour. So I think that there's a lot of ways to use that, you know, QR code, or, you know, have a double-decker bus that tours you around town and you can get off and stop, scan those QR codes. So I think it's a great idea.
Would you identify yourself, please? Because it's not apparent to me at least who is speaking.
It's Ann Kelly.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ann. Anyone else? So, Anthony, are you volunteering yourself to kind of work on this project?
My wife warned me that this would happen. Yes.
We do have
I
your
will
name and
volunteer
number.
to help, and I would look forward to additional help as well.
Great. Okay, who would like to be next?
Hi, my name's Stacy Joe Haney. Can you hear me?
Yes, and would you say your name again one time?
My name is Stacy Joe Haney. I live on Michigan Avenue, but I don't know if you can see this. I've put boards together and talked to Miss Lisa Robertson. The gentleman is absolutely brilliant. So I've done boards all in history and collections of the village of Wilmette and talked to Miss Lisa Robertson. And I think it's really important to show our historical society. Like I've done a beginning to the end. I do this for museums and this and that. But also I've talked to all the local stores. I think the school, all schools and all religions, temples, bands, and everything should be included, even for like openings and all our shops and Jewel Osco even. They have some of the most prolific, actually, artwork besides our museums here. Look, I show this. I also think time capsules. I'm going to drop these off to Lisa tomorrow. Just running a little late with 4 kids. Put boards together. Sorry, we're not one-on-one to explain it. But I think all the schools and community can be involved. Private schools, bands, public schools, shows, the Home Depot. I also use, I think the really kickoff would be the Wilmette Centennial, because our fountain is called the Centennial Fountain, and it's 150 years. So
Okay, thank you.
I think it's kind of cool. And then the history and showing the pictures of 100 years ago of families in front of that, but definitely, and that shows bands and music. I know this sounds silly, but it's quite intricate. But I am an art historian. I've talked to the rec center, everyone. I don't know if you can see this with Liz and everyone. They'll even do things, but I kind of did a foundation or like 4 different events if they want to do it. But I think especially with the gentleman that spoke a minute ago, he is brilliant, especially for the Historical Society. I think like him and I are on the same page. We should probably become best friends. I'm not kidding you, because he would love all these boards I've done. And then I cross-referenced with everything. And I thought of even fundraising for the village of Wilmette. Don't get mad at me, but this is a little cutie. I don't know if you can see it. A village of Wilmette. little bear to sell and T-shirts for the 150th anniversary. I think it's pretty cool, the Centennial. What? How cute. And I'm kind of freaked out. This is how I roll, and this is why I do huge events. But
All right,
I'm
well,
very
thank you.
gracious, kind, and thank you for your time. But
Thank
I
you.
think this gentleman that spoke a bit ago, him and I need to become best friends. Because
We'll see if we can arrange that.
books through the village of Wilmette. And I use the platform for the cards and postcards. I think it'd be a good fundraiser.
Okay. Is there any other member of the public, not a committee member, who would like to weigh
But
in? At
sir,
this point?
I ask you, I know this is inappropriate, but how do I find this guy, Mr. Chambers? We need to meet. Just saying.
All right, well, we'll
Ask
check with
Lisa
Mr.
Roberts.
Chambers and
She'll know me. And
see
then you're gonna
about,
get a big teddy bear. Look.
we'll see about sharing contact information. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board, president,
Hi, John.
not a committee member?
Yeah, this is Ellen Price. I don't know if
Okay.
you can see me.
Would you state your name one more time?
It's Ellen Price,
Hello?
and I'm with the Baha'i House of Worship, and we're excited about being involved with the Sesquicentennial. We don't have specific ideas at this time, but we're excited about being involved in whatever way is appropriate. One of the ideas that was kind of bounced around was the honoring 150 citizens of Wilmette from the beginning, from 150 years ago, and somehow getting information out about them and including as much diversity as we can, Native Americans, African Americans, and others who have contributed to the village in some significant way. So that was just one thing we wanted to throw out at this point. And we're just thrilled to be part of this in any way we can. Thanks.
Well, of course, the Baha'i temple and faith is such an important part of the village. The building is, the most recognizable landmark in the village. When we had our 125th celebration, you folks hosted an interfaith Thanksgiving service in the assembly hall in the lower level. I presume that you might be amenable to doing something like that again if that's part of the program.
Sure, that would be great. I know the interfaith group in Wilmette does have a Thanksgiving Day program, each year. So that would be great. I'm sure you would be interested.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? I don't see any names that I don't recognize, so you may be the only folks who are actually present. I think we'll end that public comment portion and let's go on and talk about the status of our sifting through these ideas. First is Lisa Roberts. Are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Can you bring us up to date on the website and the logo?
Sure. We have not seen anything yet on the logo. I had hoped, well, she said she was going to be working on it, and I guess we haven't gotten anything yet. I did want to just call up the website, and I'm sorry I didn't have it queued up already. Shoot. Anyway, Diane had laid out a very basic homepage using the Glencoe 150th website as a sample. So we don't have colors yet. Thank you, Anne, for that feedback. Nothing is active yet. It's just setting out categories for, you know, calendar and events and signing up, and a place for history to be filled out. I'll try to have that for you next time, something a little bit more built out, but that'll be the Wilmette150.com website that we'll have dedicated for all of our activities. And then of course the logo will go on that once we get it sorted out, and I'll have some samples for the committee to look at on that. And John, we've started an email contact list of the various folks who've contacted us so far, so we can continue to build that out. And as we get towards needing volunteers or promoting things, we'll be able to have a sign up on the website and then use that same list to push out to people that are specifically interested in our activities.
The website developer, are they going to have a meeting with staff at some point to discuss their work?
At this point, we've just been sort of reviewing what she's done and emailing back and forth, but we could certainly have a sit down if, you know, a couple of the committee members wanted to meet with her to talk about stuff, particularly as we get to the logo drafts and, you know, get more refined.
And I think that would be very wise to do. Anne is going to be our liaison, and we do want her expertise to be brought in. There's another young woman who has volunteered to assist in this area, and perhaps we can involve her too. But we want to make sure we get this right, and we want to. This is important. In this day and age, people visit websites and they get their information off the internet. They get it off Facebook. They get it off all these other means of communication, and we want this to be really top notch. So,
John, if you'd like, I can pull up my screen. I have the demo website on my end. So if you'd like, I can share my screen, and that way you guys can see what we're working with currently.
Okay, why don't you do that?
Thanks.
Yep, no problem. Okay, so this is the demo website as it was given to us, I believe, 2 weeks ago, Lisa. So as you'll see, there will be a calendar and an about section, kind of giving a overview of all the events, getting involved, and then also being able to input your celebration ideas. So this is all pretty basic to start, and will have to be filled in, obviously, with event information and whatnot. But we wanted to make sure that it's gonna address history, and then obviously make it very clear that we are still accepting celebration ideas. So that's how it stands currently. Obviously, it's still in development, so we'll have more updates to present. But for the time being, I wanted to give you a quick view as to what it's going to look like.
Okay,
great.
Well, I do think it's important to get our expertise from the committee involved in this. This is really important. And what about Facebook and other avenues? Are we going to do that? Lisa?
Yeah, the village has the village itself has a Facebook page and Twitter and some other stuff, and so I would expect that we would be promoting, as we have been promoting the solicitation of ideas through Facebook, doing events pushed out that way, as well as through the village's email.
And then
Should
just
the
to add on
committee
to
have
that,
its own Facebook contact?
sorry, John, let me interrupt you one more time. Just to add on to that, I am part of the village's communications team. So I work with anyone who is going to be overseeing any of our social media pages. So regarding, ideas for promotion of events on our social media, any member of the committee or member of the public can always reach out to me, and I'll make sure that our communications team receives anything. As of right now, I don't anticipate on having any specific accounts for the celebration, but if that's something that we want to do, then we can absolutely look into it. Lisa, if there's anything else to add, feel free.
I guess out of ignorance, I'm asking the question, should we have our own Facebook page? Should we have our own Twitter account or whatever?
I think even if we created like a hashtag for the event, so when you click it, it all links back to the same place. If a Facebook or Instagram page or Twitter isn't an option, I mean, everything is about the village and is an extension of what the village has been over the past 150 years. So I think it makes sense to be part of the village Facebook pages, but I think it's just a matter of how many, who's promoting those things, who's coming up with those ideas. Are we able to, do we submit the things, or just the communication back and forth between who is interacting with it?
I mean,
Yeah, I think it's
people
worth
raise.
adding. Sorry, I think it's also worth adding that it takes time to cultivate a following on all the social media accounts, and through our existing Facebook page, Twitter page, Nextdoor account, we already have that following, and I'm not sure if we would see those numbers be similar or far less, or maybe far more than the current accounts that we already have. I do think the idea of using a consistent hashtag would be great. That way, anyone will be able to see that, oh, this post is, dedicated to something Sesquicentennial. But yeah, and regarding, any communication with social media stuff, again, I'm more than happy to meet and communicate with members of the committee and public as needed. I'm always happy to take ideas and, opinions down.
Okay.
And I would kind of second that. Yeah, go ahead.
Lisa, was that you?
Yeah, I just have two questions. One, with that centralized calendar, if it works well, would we be able to hold on to it after the Sesquicentennial? Because I think villages or places that have a centralized calendar, when I travel to it, it's a good way to boost tourism indirectly. If you have, the park district and maybe the library and other organizations can put their events on that centralized calendar after the Sesquicentennial, because I know but I don't know what that upkeep would be. And then the other question is, will people be able to register for events, or will you send them somewhere else to register if registration is required for some events with limited capacity?
Lisa Roberts, you know the answer to that question?
I don't know the answer, but I would expect that we could have that function on there. I don't quite know how that works, but.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think that's just, Lisa, you bring up a great point. Both Lisas, you bring up a great point. That's something that we can absolutely communicate with the website, the current developer, and see if we need to input that. But yeah, I'm sure we'd be able to accommodate it if necessary.
Okay, well, I think this all points to the importance of having one or two people from the committee working with you, Alex, and Lisa, and the developer, and make sure we get this right and get everything on there that we want to have. Vern, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. Well, your little light is flashing. I don't know what that's all about.
Me either.
I was just gonna reiterate what Alex said about not needing to have a separate page, because you do have to build that audience, but we can also include a link that goes to the website or the landing page, whatever we have, so that every post can be clickable and goes to that page to give them more information.
Question.
Okay, well, let's move
One more
on
question.
then. I'm sorry?
I don't know. Do you trademark hashtags, or are there some hashtags that you should start putting out there, or does it just happen? I have no clue.
I think they just happen organically. I don't think you have to worry about your trademarking or anything.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have anything on this subject?
No, but if you're looking for somebody else to be a liaison with, Anne or whomever else it is, I'd be happy to help out if you need a volunteer.
Okay, who is speaking?
Lindsay Thomas.
Okay, Lindsay. All right, well, let's proceed in that manner. Alex and Lisa, and make sure we end up with a good product. Just by way of report, I have spoken with the village manager about fundraising, and apparently we have a green light, subject to reasonable restrictions, to engage in fundraising. So I would ask that all members of the committee consider ideas as to how we can raise money for whatever it is we decide we want to do for the Sesquicentennial. There's all kinds of possibilities as to how we can raise money, but we should revisit the subject at our next meeting and start planning for that. It also would help to know how much we think we're going to need, and that will be part of the planning too. Can we proceed to the summary of ideas? And I hope you all have that in front of you or convenient. We, I think, have listed pretty much everything that has been suggested. And I think we're going to have to start narrowing this down and deciding what the committee wants to undertake and possibly farming out some of the other ideas to appropriate organizations. And I don't know if you're ready to do that yet. If you want to discuss some of this stuff, but I'd say by our next meeting, we're going to have to start focusing because by June, we're going to want to start talking to the village board about appropriating money and getting their approval for ideas that require their approval. So any discussion about that, the process we should follow? Okay, well then.
Oh, it looks like I think Nancy was trying to, but you're muted, Nancy.
Nancy, unmute yourself and we'll hear what you have to say.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I had planned to go to the league with some of the ideas, share with them our list. And I know there are a number of things on that list that should interest them, and they have said they were real excited to be part of it. They've appointed someone to handle it, the issue or the program or whatever they decide to do. So I will communicate with them and be in a liaison with them. I should think they might do a couple things.
All right, well, I think that we've got to keep moving in that direction. We can have a list, that's great, but if we don't start making some concrete plans, we're going to not be proceeding in a timely manner. George, could you kind of explain the public projects, the status of the work that you and a couple other people have done to focus attention on that?
Yeah, so myself, Al Swanson, and Beth Drucker, we met once, and then we met a second time with Bridget Berger, the Director of Engineering and Public Works for the village, with the idea of looking at possible public improvement projects that we might want to consider. And I'll ask Al or Beth to chime in when I'm done if they want to add something. I don't think we have a particular recommendation, but here's a quick overview and kind of perspectives that we came away with. One, we looked at enhancing Veterans Park, which is that park, small area right east of Ladden-Lassie, that is being improved a little bit as part of the Central Street upgrades. We saw some proposals that the village is not proceeding with, but one interesting concept was a mural on the wall, or whether it's the east wall or west wall. Beth had gave us a couple of examples of how wall murals are becoming, I guess you'd say, popular in the city. And I think it's fair to say we found that pretty intriguing. We'd obviously have to get consent of the building owner and work through this, but that's one concept. We looked at improvements around the village hall as part of the upgrades that are ongoing there now. There's the holiday tree is going to be moved. Well, the old one's gone, but it's going to be west, closer to the village hall building, and possibly maybe some pavers or some benches or enhancements. I think generally we weren't real excited about that, is I think a fair summary. And I think committee members have seen, you know, proposals that the village is considered, but as of now is not. They're doing some, but not a lot of it. We also looked at expanding the bike racks at the metro station. When people are commuting, those bike racks are full, and possibly we could expand that. We received a cost proposal from the village. I think it was anywhere from 150 to maybe a little higher, 150,000. But we felt right now it's kind of hard to do something like that when it's really unclear what is going to happen with commuters over the next year or two. So that one we didn't necessarily want to pursue at this time. A couple of other concepts. One, just the overall idea of public art we liked. And and I know there are some individuals who want to work, you know, volunteer and help us on this, but even the village director of engineer, I think she was kind of encouraging us to really consider this because it's kind of something unique. It's lasting, and it's not just a infrastructure improvement that the village might be doing anyway. So it's kind of a statement that my sense was we were interested in that. The concept that's come up with our committee, you know, all of us, I think the idea of planting trees, I think we're interested in that. Actually, the Rotary Club that I'm involved in, I spoke with the board yesterday, and I could sense that our club is interested in looking into sponsoring trees. I've got to get some more specific information about that. And two other concepts, one being the village raised the idea of an electric charging station. The village has it, I guess, in their budget, but they haven't gone ahead with it. And the idea is, you know, you could charge electric cars. I think many of the towns around in the area have done this, and eventually we're going to be doing it in Wilmette, I'm sure. Location's not clear, might be behind the village hall, but I've actually been kind of nudging our Rotary Club to think about this in addition to the trees. But I don't know where that goes, but it's another concept. And finally, when Sheridan Road was redone several years ago, there are very nice monuments that are at the north and the south. And Julie Wolf was very involved in that. And I know she and others like the idea of taking that same entryway concept of kind of a welcome to Wilmette monument and putting it at other locations. For example, west on Lake at some point, whether it's where you get off the Edens or maybe even west of there. So taking that concept and putting it elsewhere. So that's a lot of concepts, and that's kind of, I think, where we are.
All right, so of those that you listed, there were two that you were expressing a lot of enthusiasm for. But there were 5 that seem like there is interest in further research into them. That would be the trees, some kind of public art, the mural on the wall at Veterans Park, the electric charging station, and the welcome to Wilmette kind of monuments. So, you know, they're all great ideas. We have no idea how much they would cost, whether they're feasible, whether the building owner will consent to the mural. I think we need to get some research done on this so that we can eliminate those that are, you know, impractical or too costly or whatever, and focus on the ones that we really want to do and start pushing for them. So, George, can your 3-person committee undertake that with the assistance of staff?
Sure. I mean, I have the cost on the charging station, so we've got 20% of it done already. So yeah, sure.
Okay.
I think we know what the trees would be too, pretty much.
But you don't have a location on the charging station.
No, and yeah, that's a little tougher. Yeah.
So, and the trees, where would they go? And, you know, what kind of trees? I've seen oak trees suggested, but I know that the village forester doesn't like doing just one brand of trees or one type of tree because of disease potential. So anyway, I really would like to see us put some more meat on these bones so that we could start coming to a rational decision about which one we will pursue or ones. So if you 3 are willing, Beth and Al and George, to continue this with the assistance of staff, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Lindsay Thomas. Can I add a side note onto one of the ideas?
Sure.
I know the Park District currently is looking to put 1 car charging station in, possibly more at least one of our facilities. So just having that knowledge out there, there will be one coming this year. It's in the works. So.
Do you know where that is, Lindsay?
I don't think they've decided the facility yet, but I know that I believe it's in the budget for this year, and it's something that's been more recently talked about. So just knowing that that's coming at some point, we'll have at least one in town.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
And maybe we can work together with them so that it's more than one.
Yeah, we might be able to get a cost break when you buy a few.
All right. So we have similar issues with all the other ideas listed on the summary. We got to put some more meat on the bones and start prioritizing. And we could go through this tonight, but I doubt that anybody's prepared to do it. But perhaps by the next meeting, we can eliminate some of these things and decide that we definitely want to do some others and refer some of them out to specific organizations like the schools, the museum, whatever, and start coming up with a plan. I don't think we have enough time tonight. There's a village board meeting, so all of the communications equipment has to be transferred over to that meeting so that they can proceed. But is everybody prepared to take a good hard look at this list and come to some decisions for our next meeting?
John.
Yes.
Quick question. One of the things when I was talking to Anthony, the director of the library, he said if we could plan, because I shared the list and he shared it with his management team as to some of the things the library would be interested in, and it sort of fit within the things we do. But he says if it's under restraint or not, are we having like 2 plans in case there's still, God forbid, you have to socially isolate and you've got limitations on capacity? And so that was one of the things brought up in terms of whether it, things you can do virtually versus whatever. I don't know, because it's about a year and a half away.
Well, that's a cloud that's still hanging out there, and I think we should proceed with the hope that
Okay.
the cloud will be lifted. And if it isn't, then we'll have to do what we have to do to restrain the celebration.
Okay.
Nancy, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I said what I wanted to say.
Okay,
John, could I say one other thing?
sure.
I think with the three of us meeting on public improvement projects, that helped kind of focus. And I wonder if that could also apply, for example, in the concept of history. Because I know there's going to be a lot of stuff working with the museum and just historical. And if there's a couple of people who want to do that, maybe they can meet together and then it'll come back to us. And the same thing in the idea of types of celebration, because I think it's hard for 15 of us to go back and forth on that.
I would agree with that. That's a good suggestion, George. We do have Kathy Hussey Arnson on the committee, and Vern.
And Nancy.
Yes. Who was the last? Oh, Nancy, yeah. So could we delegate to the three of you the items on the list that are listed as educational and history activities?
Absolutely.
And,
I guess Kathy's not here.
If there's costs involved with any of them, find out what the costs are. Do some evaluation as to whether
John?
John, it's Beth Drucker. Can I say something?
Sure.
So thanks a lot to George and Alan for all they've done on infrastructure. But one thing that occurs to me, two of the ideas that we've talked about really belong in the arts area, I think. And so if you're going to have a subcommittee for infrastructure, maybe one for history, you might want to consider doing the same thing for arts, although it may already be set up. But two things that George mentioned are, one would be the public art, which might be sort of one commemorative sculpture, which would be very lasting, but I'm not sure that is really an infrastructure project. So maybe the people that are in the arts area might be better at that or be interested in that. And the mural on the wall at Veterans Park, I also think that maybe that falls into the arts area more than infrastructure. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, the idea of a trolley tour, a historic tour that fits in with all these other great history ideas, but with opening our trolley tours, maybe in conjunction with a homecoming weekend where people who haven't lived here for a long time might enjoy seeing what Wilmette looks like now. I think that's just a great idea. Don't know whose that was, but I love that idea.
Okay, so George, going back to you, I think Beth has a good point that some of them are art issues. So
I'm happy to talk to
I think
Julie.
Julie Wolf has, I don't know if all of you know Julie. She was a former village trustee. She's been very active in the community, and she has a pretty deep art background and landscape architecture background. So she's not on this committee, but she has volunteered to provide assistance and take a leadership role with regard to art projects. So, and is there anybody else on the committee who is interested in this facet particularly? Well, so George, could you add Julie to your group and, cover all these subjects, at least for now, with the three of you and Julie? And
Yep.
anybody else you want to, involve for advice or
John,
whatever.
John, this is Alice Chow. I would be
Yes.
happy to help out with the committee as well.
Okay, we have to be careful about the Open Meetings Act.
Oh,
And if we get more than 3 members of the committee.
oh no, or not necessarily in the committee, but just to offer some ideas.
That would be fine. Why don't you, if you got some ideas to offer, why don't you talk to George?
I will. Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Is there any further concerns or ideas that anybody wants to raise at this point? Again, we've got to start focusing at our next meeting on picking out the ones we want to pursue, getting rid of the ones that we're not interested in, and farming out the ones that we think somebody else would be interested in. So please come prepared at our next meeting, which there's no reason to delay it very long. I would say, is the committee willing to meet in 2 weeks?
Sure.
Any objection to that? All right, so in the meantime, you can study the summary and come prepared to make the hard decisions. And is there any member of the public who would like to speak again? Hearing none. Just one, I see at the end of the summary, the restaurant-centered events. Anybody got any suggestions as to how we should try to get the restaurants to come together and carry out some of these ideas if we decide to pursue them? How do we organize that group? Julie Usom's not here, so we don't have the benefit of her counsel.
So, John, I could chime in a little bit. I mean, I do think that, the bucket of events, some of that might go hand in hand with some of the other, public events or celebrations that we have, that the restaurants can celebrate those. So those might, they can participate in those. So those might go hand in hand. I know that, I saw a lot of the suggestions from people sending in. A lot of people suggested some kind of a, public fest or celebration or a taste of Wilmette. Those kind of certainly have their own challenges, but those could include, the restaurants. So I'd be happy, be part of that, subcommittee if we want to make that a bucket. Or if we want to include that with other ideas.
How do we get the restaurants to work together?
I would suggest Julie's probably the only one that knows how to do that. I don't know who's talking to who in the restaurant group, but I would think Julie would be the one to try to facilitate that.
So right now we are doing, give a little plug, it's Restaurant Month in April in Wilmette, and I've been really, involved in that. And, it's challenging with restaurants because everybody has, a different way that they go about business. And obviously there's a lot of rules about serving food, outside in public, but we do, I'm on the chamber, board. We do the taste of, and a lot of the restaurants participate in that. So when we do kind of, one key is to plan pretty far in advance, so that we don't have a lot of time to give input.
So, and that was Ann Kelly speaking, was it not?
It was.
Yeah. Do you want to work with Julie on looking at this list and coming up with some ideas about how we get the restaurants on board with this planning?
Sure, absolutely.
I didn't hear an answer.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, happy to do that. Absolutely.
Great. Okay, so maybe by the next meeting, you can have some suggestions as to, you know, how we can bring the restaurants on board.
Sure.
Okay, anything else to come before the committee? Before we adjourn? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We'll send out a notice of the next meeting. Does anybody have comments about the date for the next meeting? I'm saying approximately 2 weeks.
No.
There's some day of the week that doesn't work for a lot of people. Okay, well, we'll just pick
This
a date.
works. Tuesday works.
It'll be another board meeting if that's a problem.
Yeah, so maybe we shouldn't do it on a Tuesday.
I think if we meet earlier, that's okay. I don't know. Just offer that up.
Yeah, what about the time? Does this 6 o'clock time pose a problem for folks? Would you rather do it earlier or later? Speak up.
A little. I would prefer it a little earlier, if that's possible.
Yeah, earlier works
Kelly.
for
Fine
me.
with me, yeah.
Earlier?
I prefer earlier.
Okay, I detect the sentiment for earlier. So let's try to do it earlier. Like at 4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 o'clock?
That's good.
Okay. All right, now, is there a motion to adjourn?
We had one.
Who made it?
Nancy.
I'll make it again. Second motion.
And is there a
Ann
second?
Kelly second.
We have one. Bird seconded it. Call the roll, please.
Yep. Ms. Chow,
Yes.
Ms. Drucker,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mr. Swanson,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Canifax,
Yes.
Mr. Canning,
Aye.
Mr. Squires,
Yes.
Mr. Jacoby.
Yes. And with that, the meeting is adjourned, and we'll see you all in a couple of weeks.
Bye all.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Now for our next meeting.